Well, let's continue with another interesting conversation. Food prices jumped after federal government removed fuel subsidy payments in late May, promising to divert the funds to other vital projects. In response to inflation and inability of Nigerian citizens to afford basic food items, President Bola Tinubu's advisor on special duties, communications and strategy, Mr. Dele Alake, announced that the federal government declared a national emergency on food security. The president ordered that all matters pertaining to food and water availability and affordability be included within the scope of the National Security Council. He also ordered the immediate release of fertilizers and grains to farmers and households to mitigate the effects of the subsidy removal. Well, with me on the show today from the United Kingdom, he is a researcher and an agribusiness economist, Dr. Mathew Ojo, to look at some of these policies and what it means for the entire sector. Thank you so much, Dr. Ojo. Good afternoon, and how are you doing over there?
Good afternoon, Tolu, and good afternoon to our viewers at home.
Well, first, let me start with the regular question you should expect from me. What is your reaction to the move made by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu with regards to Nigeria's agricultural sector? What are the possible implications of this?
Yeah, thank you very much, Tolu, for having me on your show once again. Now, my first reaction is a positive one, and I must tell you, I'm really happy to see this kind of move coming up this early. Remember our last discussion and when agriculture was specifically mentioned in the inaugural speech of the president. And I did say, I'm not the type that usually will react to speeches. Now, following up with this one, I think is a good development, is the right step in the right direction. But let us not forget, this is still just speeches or statements. However, it's also important for me because it's coming out at a period when the state of food security and nutrition in the world report has just been released. I think it was released last week. And the major highlight in that report, one of them is that for last year alone, 2022, 122 million people faced hunger worldwide. And Africa, though, is the worst hit of all the regions, with 1 out of every 5 persons in Africa facing, hunger. And of course, Nigeria plays a huge role in that. If you remember the Global Food Index report that we analyzed the last time we were on this program, I was on your program. So it's good that it's coming out at the same time when that, report came out. It shows that something is to be done, and to have declared a state of emergency also gives you the in terms of priority what food issue or where food issue lies in this in the mind of this administration. Now, having said that, okay, I looked at the press release or the press statement, and you could see that it was done in response to curtailing the current food inflation in the country, which is good. I always like us to do things with specificity. And someone might argue that, okay, that might come later, but let's start that way. If you want to create jobs, you say 10 million jobs in the next so years. That is good. So by how much do we want to reduce inflation, food inflation? In the next 1 year, in the next 2 years, how much percentage drop are we looking at? So once we have that, it gives us a target to look at. The second paragraph, I think, was talking about, a statement was made there that while availability is not a problem, affordability has been to be a major issue. That to me, I think we should look at it this way. Availability is what drives affordability. So if you look at those 11 initiatives written in that statement, many of them are also addressing the issue of availability. So it's not just affordability. I think I want to correct that. It is both availability and affordability, because seasonality is a problem of availability, which eventually affects affordability. People not able to access their farms is a problem of availability. They can go to the farm, they can't farm, so you don't have food available, so it affects the price. But then if you look at it generally, that the government has taken this move is commendable, and one waits to see how this will be implemented. I'll discuss certain things as we go on in the course of the program. Let me just stop here now.
A good start, as usual, Dr. Ojo. But the immediate measures, you've talked about some of them, and some that ring also in my head is also creating a national commodity exchange and all of that. People have been talking about all of this and the positives therein. But I'm asking you now, specifically, what do you see this adding to what we have, considering the challenges across the economy? There's insecurity. There are other issues also around the agricultural space. Storage issues.
Yes, Tolu. You see, if we just jump to the National Commodity Board issue, we'll be doing injustice to the statement because there are a number of measures mentioned in that statement that needs addressing.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
The first one is this. I looked at the entire measures around the level and I grouped them into like 3 or 4 groups. But the first one has to do with food prices and inflation. Okay?
Go ahead.
Now, the statement has made effort to address issues that will bring down food prices. They talked about transportation and storage. They talked about ensuring that they provide security for people who want to go to the farm. Then, before this third one that has to do with National Commodity Board to moderate prices. Now, this will reduce, if they are able to do this, transportation and storage measures will reduce seasonal prices, okay? That drive that you see when you have surplus, prices come down and it's off-season, it goes up. And it also helps to address the cost of movement of food from one part of the country to another, especially from farms to the market. But then I want them to also pay attention to certain things when they go about implementation, because that is where the issue is. It's not about coming up with good policies, it's how do you implement that is different from what has been existing before. Nigeria is not bereft of good policies that can bring about food abundance in the country. The problem is how we go about implementing this. So if you talk about providing transportation, it has to be properly defined. Who moves from the farm, the interior farms, to the next accessible road for farmers, and then from there to the local market, and from the local market to other parts of the country? Who addresses the transportation? So they need to look at how the federal government will work with the state government and the local government to provide transportation in each of these, settings that I've mentioned. Very important. Also, when you talk about providing security agencies, we need to also talk about this not eventually becoming a problem. I'll give you an example, Tolu. When you look at a place like Oyo Town and it's saying it's just a journey of 45 kilometers thereabout. There was a time that we took a study, we counted about up to 15 police checkpoints between Iseyin and Oyo Town, okay? And what were they doing? They are supposed to be providing security. But, every time these people come with their commodities from the farm, they collect bribes from them each point to collect. And by the time they get to the market, you know what that will mean. So they need to look at that. How do you ensure that when they are transporting food from one place to another, security agents don't add to the price? Local government agents don't add to the price. Market associations don't add to the price that it will eventually come up with at the market. So they also need to do this to reduce prices, work with the market associations. We have some major food hubs, food markets in the country. Can we work with the local government to create a safe space and say, this is farmer space? So farmers who ordinarily want to bring their products directly to the market without having to go to middlemen can take their stuff to that space and sell cheaply to people. I tell you, you can't do that now because market associations will not allow you. So food prices these are low-hanging fruits we can take advantage of in terms of reducing food prices. And let me ask, is there any guideline of food transportation policy in the country? I'm not sure. If there is, can we look at it again? If there's not, can we add that to this plan we have? Such that people don't just use any kind of truck to transport products. You often shows on your station transportation of tomatoes using trucks. Okay, I've also seen where they were transporting pumpkin tied in bags and rafter sacks. So if we have that, it can help with storage, it can help in reducing prices. And then lastly, in terms of planning to reduce food prices, the report I just told you, the SOFI report, which was released for 2023, it talked about that 7 out of 10 persons in the nearest future will live in the cities. So can we start thinking how to ensure that agriculture is also, food is also produced more in the urban centers than in the rural areas? That, I think, added to what they have planned or what they have put out, can maybe make these policies, fruitful. We need targets. We need KPIs to measure their progress, because KPIs, they are not affiliated with any political parties. They are not, no ethnic sentiments or religious sentiments. It tells you how things are. So giving us general statements, that is good, but we can do better. Can we have targets? Let them tell us by what percentage and when and how should we expect this. If they can put it in the statement, maybe when they work, when they have committees to work on this, they can come out and let us know so that we can measure progress.
Indeed, Dr. Ojo, I agree with you that there should be monitoring and evaluation of schemes or initiatives like this one, so that we can, know where we are, where we should be, and where we have gotten to at the moment. But let's talk about synergy between the Agricultural Ministry and the Ministry of Water Resources. That is something that also comes to my mind. How important is this for the sector?
Honestly, Tolu, I'm very happy. You see, when I tell you I'm happy, you just take it from me, because I'm not the type that will just come and tell you something.
I know.
You see, this is what we've always asked for. Synergy between ministries, where ministries will see their output as being complementary, not as if there's a competition. So I love this. Ministry of Water working with Ministry of Agriculture to bring about what we want. What this will mean is that if this synergy really is well monitored, we can easily address the issue of seasonal farming in Nigeria. The issue of livestock not having enough water can be addressed. Okay? In that same press statement, there's a mention of river basins in Nigeria. We have 11 of them, like they mentioned. The last time I checked, Nigeria has 12 river basins development authorities. Okay? The question is, what has been happening with those authorities? I can remember that they came about, I think, around over 40 years ago, around 1976, during the tenure of the then head of state, President Olusegun Obasanjo. So, can we just review? Because I always say this: if this present government wants results, they need to do something different from the previous regime, and which is, don't just start building on what is there. Review and look at the foundation so that you can have results. Nobody argues with results. But if you don't have results, then people make excuses. So what has happened to the river basin authorities? They were made to help, in terms of seasonal farming, provide water for irrigation, control erosion, even encourage, water transportation and the likes. Which of these objectives have been achieved over the years? Why have they not been achieved? What can be done differently? How can they be supported such that our farming in Nigeria is no longer seasonal to a large extent? And then they mentioned something around irrigation. That is beautiful. But the irrigation should not just be left at the location where you have the river basins. Can we take advantage of the various scales of irrigation? Can we look at the medium, the micro, and the mini, and make these equipments available directly to farmers? Okay? So that we can have a situation whereby seasonality is no longer an issue in the country. It would be a good thing if this regime can help to stop the issue of over-reliance on rain-fed agriculture in Nigeria and take advantage of what the Ministry of Water Resources can give, as well as looking at the River Basin Authority. A holistic review, please, before anything is started, would be helpful.
Finally, before I let you go, what is your outlook with this move? If we continue and work across boards, focusing on the same goal, what do you see happening in the sector? Inflation figures just released again, and it's on the high side. Yes, breaking news as I speak with you now in Nigeria. We just have inflation in at 22.79%, and I'm sure it's going to be across boards, all sectors. So what are you saying around this, and what is your outlook considering these realities that we face?
You see, agriculture or agricultural development takes time, okay? It's not something you just see immediately. Let me say this. If you look at the headline inflation in Nigeria, it's usually driven, okay, more often than not by food inflation, right? The core inflation doesn't really change that much compared to food. I think before these figures were released, the last figure, the one for May, food inflation stands around close to 25%. So if you look at it in the next few months, if this statement brought out by this regime is followed through with action,
I guess
okay?
now then we go there.
With actions, then we can be able to see improvement in the next maybe 6 months or 1 year. Some low-hanging fruits can start coming up for us to see. But if they just want to pump money, because I also saw that in one of the measures, make money available, party agents will take advantage of it. Political farmers, people who are not farmers, will go and access the money. And that is what part of the problem we're having with Anchor Brown scheme. People who don't know farming get themselves together, become political farmers, access funds, and they waste it on something that is not related to agriculture. So if we do things the right way, of course, we would see results. And the outlook can then be positive. For now, to sit down and just tell you because of a statement, everything will change overnight, we'll be deceiving ourselves.
Amos, thank you so much for your time. It's always nice having you analyze agricultural issues surrounding of course, the globe and not just Nigeria. Researcher, Agribusiness Economist, thank you so much and do enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you, Tolu, for having me.